Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Tacho here, and we're back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. So today we got ourselves our copies of the Grand Hero Battle Unit Petrine. She's a really awesome unit, definitely one of the better free-to-play prize units that we've gotten in recent memory. I think the last good one we got was Ashnard, and now we have Petrine. It seems like a running theme, actually, that all of the prize units from Tellius end up being amazing. Because we had Black Knight, of course, he was the original, and he was probably the best free-to-play unit for a long time. Then, of course, we had Ashnard and now Petrine, and all three of them are super good. So, I don't know what it is about the bosses from Tellius, but they seem to get a lot of love. Okay, so anyways, let's go ahead and talk about Petrine. So her base kit, she comes with the Flame Lance, which is a pretty solid weapon. It gives her a natural speed up 3, and then as long as she's above 50% HP, she's going to be targeting res on the foes that she attacks, and she's also inflicting speed and res -5 on those foes. So a very solid perf weapon, definitely going to see a lot of use. She also comes with Ignis, attack and speed push 3, and threat and attack and defense 2. So a solid base kit, more so for skill inheritance, if anything, because, I mean, attack and speed push 3 isn't really the best skill, but once you upgrade it to the level 4 variant, that's when it becomes a top tier competitor for the A slot. And threat and attack and defense 2, not really the best, but once again, very good for skill inheritance if you want to sacrifice somebody that has threat and attack and defense 3, as well as some other good skill they might have. So very good stuff from Petrine. And as for recommended IVs on her, I'm going to say typically you probably want plus speed, but plus attack and plus res are also going to be very strong options. Plus attack, of course, because her weapon is already inflicting -5 speed on the foes. And once you couple that with all of the other skills you may be giving her to raise her speed, you might get to a point where speed is actually overkill. So plus attack may not be the worst idea. And of course she has a super boon in res, so plus res might not be the worst idea either if you want her to tank hits and run a bait build, which I am actually going to cover at the end of the video. Alright, so let's start things off with the first budget build option you've got. So this one is going to be the classic Desperation build, where we're using Fury 3 to chip our HP down. And then once we dip below 75% HP, we're going to have Desperation and Brazen Attack and Speed to activate. So very good stuff. Also, another cool thing about this build on Petrine is that once we get low on HP, she's going to switch from targeting res into targeting defense. So that could come in handy in some situations if maybe there's a strong unit on the map that has a lot higher defense than res, and at first you may want to be targeting res, but things might flip-flop later on in the fight and you want to target defense. So with this build, you can actually target both things, which is pretty cool. But I can't really say how often that's actually going to matter. It is a very situational thing to be in that position. And for the C-slot passive, it's very much just a flex option. I'm recommending Rouse Speed and Defense since you can get it from Ferdinand. But you're free to run anything there. I mean, you could go for one of the cavalry skills like Hone or Fortify Cavalry, or Ward and Goad Cavalry as well. Those are pretty good. So just pick your favorite C-slot skill as long as it's a budget option and you're comfortable with that. And if you want to go high investment, here is an alternate option to that same build. This time, of course, we're going for attack and speed push 4 since it's still going to chip our HP just like Fury, but we get more focused stats on attack and speed for the player phasing. We're going with Joint Drive Attack in the C-slot passive, but you could also go for Joint Drive Speed if you want, so you could just pump up her speed even more. I think Joint Drive Attack might be a little bit better though, because, I mean, she's already inflicting speed -5 on the foes, and then with Brazen Attack and Speed and Attack and Speed Push 4, speed might end up becoming overkill at that point. So Joint Drive Attack comes in handy there. You could also ditch Attack and Speed Push 4 if you don't want to suffer chip damage, and you could go for either Swift Sparrow 3 or Attack and Speed Solo 4. And this comes in handy for Petrine because the less damage you actually end up taking, You can focus your attacks to target res instead of switching over to targeting defense. So you do get a bit of consistency there. And also, attack and speed push will burn out eventually during the fight if she ever gets below 25% health. So attack and speed solo 4 and swift sparrow 3 do have that one advantage over attack and speed push. But honestly, however you want to play this build, it's going to work. It just plays to Petrine's strengths so well, and she's going to be able to dish out some serious damage. Alright, next up we have a Gale Force build that you can run. So of course Petrine is a cavalry type unit, so she's capable of moving 3 spaces in a turn. And when you have that much reach, it's very good to run Gale Force on a unit like that. Once again, we are going for Fury 3 and Desperation 3, mainly because there's not really any better options for budget for Petrine. But they still definitely get the job done. And we are going for Heavy Blade 3 on this build, so she can actually ramp into Gale Force in 1 round of combat. Now, once you get into Desperation range, you're just going to be hitting the foes twice in a row. And because her weapon does not have -1 cooldown count, she's not going to be able to activate Gale Force on her own at that point. But if you have dancers on the team, preferably with Wings of Mercy so they can just jump to her, she is still going to be able to make pretty good use of Gale Force then. So I do still think Gale Force is a good option for Petrine. But if you don't want to have to worry about supporting her with dancers or anything like that, you could opt for a different weapon like Spirited Spear or Slaying Lance Plus. And those weapons are going to allow her to just activate Gale Force right away, so long as she has enough attack to activate Heavy Blade as well. So just another way you could run the build. And if you'd prefer to go high budget with the Gale Forcing, this is a possible build you could go for. So we've got Attack and Speed Solo 4 and Lull Attack and Speed this time around. And the idea is that we're going to hit the foes once, get +2 special charge from Heavy Blade, take a counter hit from the foe, which is going to be weakened by Lull Attack and Speed. And then our final hit is going to finish the foe off, and we should be able to ramp into Gale Force at that point. So it has a pretty nice progression to it, but we are counting on the fact that the foes can attack Petrine. So you may want to have a healer on the ready to just recover her HP and make sure she can keep on doing this. But just like on the low budget build, if you want to run Desperation and have dancer support, you can always do that as well. It just comes down to how you prefer to play the build. And finally, we have kind of a meme build, but not really. We have a bait option build for Petrine. So Petrine has the highest BST out of any cavalry unit, and that includes Eliwood with the Resplendent bonus, which is pretty insane to think about. So with stats like that, it is very possible for Petrine to pull off some enemy phasing. I'm showing her off with complete investment this time around. I don't usually do this in my builds videos, but for bait builds like this, I do think it's important to show the full stats. So we've got S-rank summoner support, 5 dragon flowers, and +10 merges. So as you can see, she does have some pretty strong stats there. And don't forget Spirited Spear, the weapon that we're running, is going to grant her attack and defense +4 if she has an active bonus on her. So that's going to bump her stats up to 60 attack and 41 defense. Pretty strong. We've also got Lull attack and defense on the build as well to hinder the foe's damage output and raise her own damage output. And another really cool thing about Spirited Spear, especially for these cavalry units, is that it's going to grant them the breath ramp. So they can easily just charge up a special attack and go for it. And normally, cavalry units are not allowed to inherit breath skills. So this weapon is pretty clutch on them. And it's going to allow Petrine to instantly activate Noontime anytime the foes attack her. We have Quick Repost as the Sacred Seal, just so Petrine can give the middle finger to any foes running impact skills, of course. She also has a very good natural speed. So it's not likely that foes are going to be able to double attack Petrine if you've got the right support units helping her out. And Quick Repost is going to nullify any impact effects and allow her to just go for the speed check doubles on those foes. But if you're not a fan of Quick Repost on a unit that already has a lot of speed, you could just opt for something else like Speed and Res Solo or Mirror Stance 2 for the Sacred Seal, just to gain some extra stats in most of the matchups. And we have Pulse Smoke on the build as well, so she can just deal a little bit better with Infantry Pulse teams. But if you don't think Infantry Pulse teams are going to be an issue, then feel free to go for Attack Smoke instead, or possibly even Joint Drive Attack, so you can just have her deal a lot more damage, and in turn she's going to heal a little bit more with Noontime, which is helpful. So on paper, it looks like a very good build, and there doesn't really seem to be any weaknesses to this. But you gotta remember that baiting with Cavalry isn't really ideal. Some foes are gonna have effective damage on Cavalry, and we don't really run any protection for that. So let's say you're up against a unit like Micaiah or Brave Lysithea or something like that. Petrine is gonna be in a bit of trouble. It's not too common that you're going to see that, though, because effective against Cavalry is probably the least common type of effective damage that people run. So you could totally get away with this and just bait people with Petrine, no problem. And it may not be the worst idea to have access to a build like this if you definitely plan to go for the merges on Petrine and fully max her out. So that's all for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the builds for Petrine, and she's a really awesome unit, so I definitely plan to be getting some use out of her myself. Let me know in the comments section down below how you plan to build your Petrine if you want to use her, and I'm interested to hear you guys' take on how to build Petrine. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and as always, this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, and I'll catch you guys again on the flip side.